Donald Trump was out today trying to paint a rosy picture of his wildly unpopular war with Iran. It runs directly counter to the facts as we understand them. Here's what he told his friend Maria Bartiromo yesterday.
They have no leaders. The leaders they have now, it's a new regime, okay? And we find them pretty reasonable, to be honest with you. By comparison, pretty reasonable. It really is a new regime. And I think we're doing very well, but it only matters what the end result is, and maybe it'll happen fairly soon. Who knows?
So about the folks Trump calls reasonable, the reality is the New York Times reports it as this, quote, the war may have only increased the internal sway of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the hardline military force that has long been a major player in Iran's politics and economy. New York Times adding this, quote, the Iranian regime is acting emboldened, having demonstrated that it can wreak havoc in global trade. With no peace deal reached and no indication that the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports in the Straits of Hormuz will result in Iran loosening their grip on the Strait of Hormuz. Here is what the world has to deal with. The head of the International Energy Agency warned today that Europe has, quote, maybe 6 weeks of jet fuel left. The economic consequences of Trump's war here in the U.S. are also bad and getting worse. On that, the New York Times reports this, quote, with high gas prices cutting deeply into many family budgets, the U.S. economy is under increasing strain, raising the odds that inflation will worsen, unemployment will rise, and growth will slow this year. I want to bring in CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman. Alex is still here. Steve, it's so nice to see you. I feel like it's always when the sky is falling for American households and American families, either from tariffs or in this case now from Iran. But I want to ask you about Europe first. I mean, 6 weeks until there's a serious jet fuel shortage, and this might sound small, but we talk about the way people experience the economy. Wall Street Journal is reporting that the prolonged Hormuz blockade risks creating a UK beer shortage during the World Cup. Anyone who's been there knows this is actually will be a huge national story, if not a national hardship. The Journal writes this, quote, Britain is bracing for beer shortages during the Soccer World Cup this summer if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't reopen soon. The UK relies on imports of carbon dioxide, which goes into carbonated drinks, making CO2, devours energy. So the steep rise in natural gas prices since the UK attacked Iran and Tehran, closed Hormuz, has imperiled international supplies. Your thoughts on what we're sort of staring at?
Well, I'll take a step back and notice, Nicolle, that you're talking about foreign countries. And at the moment, when it comes to the worst of the effects of the Iran war, it's our war and mostly their problem. And I mean all over the world. And I mean developing countries especially. There are countries that are cutting back on asking people to work at home. There are amazingly high spot prices for oil in some places in Asia that we're hearing about. We've heard about issues with Taiwan. All of this initially, it's hitting hardest overseas because of the regional nature of oil. Not that it's not hitting here, and especially here in the United States, it's hitting low-income Americans with higher gas prices. We've seen surges in diesel prices. And this, of course, creates this dual negative track of potentially freezing business in their place, not hiring, and having a negative economic shock from the fallout from the higher oil prices, but also higher inflation. And that's the fear. And the only thing economists can do right now is say, well, tell me how long this lasts, and I'll tell you what the negative effects are. If it goes away tomorrow, it may be that what's happening overseas doesn't lap up on our shores, or the worst of it doesn't hit here. But if it lasts for several months, well, then we're talking about fairly serious outcomes for the U.S. economy.
And let me just come back to what you cited in gas prices. I mean, this is, regardless of how far you drive or how often you drive, this is both an economic hardship and a psychological drain. I mean, since February 15th of this year, when gas was $2.91 a gallon, to April 15th, which was Tuesday, it's now $4.11 a gallon. For the vast majority of American households, that causes a real reorganization of spending and priorities and choices you didn't have to make as of February 15th.
Yeah, these are high gas prices, and they definitely hurt, especially people who have long commutes and businesses that are very energy intensive. But it's something we've been through before, and it's hard to underestimate the resilience of the U.S. economy and average Americans. It's worth, though, thinking about the layer of woes that they've been through, which is we came into this episode with higher inflation, and we layered on top of that the tariffs. And now on top of that is the war. We've seen consumer sentiment plunge, but not yet, Nicolle, consumer spending. And that can happen after a prolonged period of depressed consumer sentiment. But right now, spending is okay. The U.S. economy is okay. And I think what you're seeing when it comes to the president and perhaps him extending the talks with Iran and that sort of stuff is him understanding that if this goes on much longer, it's not going to be just Europe. It's not going to be just Bangladesh. It's not going to be just Japan. It's going to be the United States in a much more serious way than it's been so far.
And the Iranians are nothing if not sort of voracious consumers of American politics, and they know that as well.